for now. Okay, so I think we got a few people joining. Awesome. Feel free to use the chat to send me any feedback. Okay, so here's where we left off yesterday. Let's close that and go back out to Blue. Okay, so what I updated yesterday is kind of, this is where it ended up. I'm okay with this, but there's a couple things about this that bother me. So let's go back to the YAML so it's a little easier to maybe see. So some people pointed this out on Twitter, which was good. I got some really great feedback from yesterday's video on replies and DMs and even some emails. So two things. First of all, some people were complaining that this, or well, not complaining, but recommending that it would be good to keep this kind of valid YAML. So right now this isn't, coming across as valid YAML because I kind of have these shorthands. So people were saying, hey, why not just make it, be timestamps or something? Or better yet, why not just have these be defaulted unless you say something like, the ID is, some other column or something like that. Um, so that is an option, and that may be something I come back to. Because again, I think to that point, all of this is about the developer experience. That's the whole point of Blueprint is obviously we can write all this code ourselves and we can use those make commands and we can use the other packages like the layer cache generators and stuff that are out there. But this is really supposed to be something more, but not so much that it becomes its own language, or at least not yet anyways. So because of that, the point is some of these decisions that I'm making, some people are kind of questioning and asking me, which is good, but why not do the hyphens? Why not do, valid YAML? Because it's about developer, experience. And what I mean by that is quickness. I want this to be quick and helpful and have shorthands. So for those reasons, I'm going to leave this kind of invalid YAML that we're going to pre-process for now. If these end up being the only two shorthands, when I get to the end of this, I'll fix that because yeah, it's not worth having invalid YAML for two shorthands. So I'll just default them or something because that's pretty common. So for those reasons, I'm going to leave it for now. But again, I'll keep it in the back of my mind to get rid of. The other thing somebody pointed out is like I could do like models to create kind of a hierarchy here, and then I could say something like controllers and have all my controllers grouped under a certain subcategory. And again, this would give me some additional context, some additional parsing, and kind of stay with that valid YAML at that point. And here I could even shorthand this where it's like post or something. And I would know to kind of build the rest. So I'm not against this, just because I think that could give me some additional structure, like some document structure. So again, if you were sharing this YAML, it's kind of nice to just see like models and controllers. Going back to what I said a second ago, this is kind of some extra syntax, so I don't really know, but I imagine there's probably going to be like some generators for Blueprint. Like I could imagine that, like, Blueprint generate model, and it kind of gives you this YAML skeleton. Again, I don't know how this is going to be used yet, so I really want to focus on speed of typing, so it's real quick to kind of get in here and make this stuff. Obviously, much, much faster than doing it yourself, right? So for those reasons, like I'm not too sure if I want to, add these bits or not. So I think for now I'm going to stick with I'm going to stick with this. So I am going to add the models and the controller definitions. I like the document structure that it provides. So this is just some recap from yesterday. So the two main things here are really the fact that first, it's all about speed. It's all about things being very quick. So I want this syntax, this YAML, to be very readable, but yet very quick to type, where you could even, see some kind of like IDE plugin with auto completion that just makes this super fast to kind of write all this out. And that's why I'm willing to maybe give up on perfectly valid YAML, right out of the box. So we'll see. Okay, cool. So let's do this. I definitely think again though, if all we ever end up with are these shorthands, like I could see just defaulting them or just having something where at that point you turn them off with like timestamp false, which I know several people have recommended. I think somebody just threw that out in the chat. So yeah, definitely. I'm gonna revisit these for sure. So let's make sure we're still parsing for now. So let's do PHP blueprint. Good. Colon cannot be. So it looks like. Okay, so we're just missing some pre-processing still. So let's go back to our little preprocessor and kind of clean this up now that we know kind of how we want all this to look. So I'm not going to store this intermediary representation anymore or like the names. I just need to replace these shorthands. Um, so I think that should be good. Let's get rid of map context. I really shouldn't need that anymore either. So we can get rid of contexts. What are we parsing here? Let's keep the definition and let's see what this looks like. Okay, so this kicks out models, post, ID, ID. It looks like I just have some spacing issues here and the rest seems to be okay. So let's go back. What's wrong with the spacing? I've got any number of spaces. What is your deal? And that's definitely not the same. All right, let's do this. Let's get this a little tighter. So let's go 2 and 2, and I'm going to capture the amount of spacing that's there. So it doesn't like timestamps. There we go. That's my fault. Okay, cool. Okay, so I think this is working. Again, it's just right now we're just parsing out those shorthands. So I think that's pretty good. This gives us this. And again, I already like this structure better, like I said, because I have kind of this easy parsable block now, or easy iterable block of models and controllers. Everything's already kind of grouped out. And again, it creates a structure which I think is going to be a little nicer. I think devs will appreciate kind of having that definition of, okay, all my models are up here and all my controllers are here, instead of a situation where I do something like, user, and then session controller, and like session, and I'm interchanging like models, and model controllers. So it's just, I think if you wrote a blueprint file like that, it would be a little bit ugly, or just hard to read. So I think this gives it a little bit of structure, even though it's a bit more typing. It also gives us structure on the back end, meaning right here. So now I can just loop over these. So I think we have this parser, which is just out of the box with Symfony, very easy. We're giving it just some lightweight pre-processing to cut up our shorthands, which again, we may come back and get rid of. So what I want to focus on today, I think, is building an intermediary representation of this post. And what I mean by that is like, I want to create an object that will house some information about this definition. So for example, I want to know like the column names, I want to know their types potentially, and all this intermediary representation or this data object or this data representation of this model is going to give me a lot of power down the road, right? Because now this model in a way is going to be a model. It's going to model the definition of that model. So I'm going to call it the intermediary representation. I think that's a little more compilers, Lexers kind of terminology. If I'm remembering back to like my CS 300 compilers course. So the point is that we've got this parsed out. We've really just input this file. We've given it some pre-processing. We have this definition now. And I wouldn't go so far as to call this like a syntax tree, because it looks like it, I guess, a little bit, but it's not really the same. I couldn't use this directly very efficiently. Like, I could just take this array and pass it around everywhere else, but it's going to be a little bit hard, or it's going to be a little bit annoying for everywhere that this post array gets sent to have to determine, like, what's the name of your ID column? Are you using timestamps? What data type is title, right? It'd be better if I had a bit of a smarter object that I could say, give me all your columns, and it's going to give me that. So think, for example, if I want to generate the fillable property of a model like in Laravel. So let's just bring this up in the background. So like Laravel model fillable. Because again, this thing's going to be very, very smart. So like I want to have this be, something that can do a lot. And if I just pass around this array, I'm just going to generate like a flimsy little, migration file. Like I want to do much, much more than that. So by having these columns, I could auto populate things like fillable. So again, just having those column names and so forth is going to be really, really nice to be able to use later. And it's probably the most important for models because models are going to get referenced down here. We can already see that like post index takes posts. We're going to validate like title and content. Here's title and content. So it's gonna be good to know like what type they are if I'm going to try to automatically generate validation. So we can see how this just like is going to compound. So I'm a big proponent of MVP and doing the simplest thing. And there's an argument to be made that passing this around is the simplest thing. But I already know, like just one step into this project, that having this array alone is going to be very, very annoying. It's not going to give me enough. So today, what I want to focus on is building some kind of interpreter that's going to loop over the models, and it's going to build this intermediate representation of all the different models and possibly put those in some kind of registry that's going to allow me to reference them in other places of the application. So that's kind of the goal today. We'll see how far we get. So let's just do like a real poor man's like to-do here, and we'll say something like loop over models and build intermediate representation. I'll just call that IR for short. And then that's kind of the high level goal. So like breaking this subtask down, we're going to want to probably like, I don't know, generate a IR with columns, maybe attributes it'd be nice to know, things like that. We'll stop there. So the point is that this is going to generate some other stuff, and then we're going to want to store, hello, store those by name in the registry. So we've got some concepts here already, like I'm definitely going to have this registry, this intermediary representation, and so forth. There's going to be something that needs to like loop over this. So I'm going to keep hacking away on this blueprint file, but what we're going to do is I'll probably start getting more object-oriented today, and we'll start putting things in source. So we're going to start to see this develop as a Laravel package or as a PHP package. So let's see what we have next here. So let's get started. So we have this definition. So it's time to loop over definition models. All right, so let's do that. And that's pretty straightforward. So we just have this models top level array. So we can do something like for each definition, models, and that's going to be as a model. And this is where we want to do these other things. So we've already got the loop. That's pretty straightforward. So now let's break this down. We've got this generate IR with columns, attribute, etc. So I want something that I can pass in a name and some kind of definition and have that give me back a model, right? So I think what I'll do here is, I think the simplest thing to do is some kind of factory. That sounds like a factory to me. I'm asking it to generate some type of a model. I don't know if these models are going to be different or subclassed. That's getting a little ahead of myself, so let's just do that. So let's just say something like, what do I want to call this? Let's just call this IR for now. I hate that name, but let's just leave it alone. And we'll say something like model factory, and we'll just say create. And we're going to pass it the model, and we're going to want the name probably. So let's say name, name and definition. Definition. All right, so let's send it the definition. and obviously the name as well. All right, and that should return some kind of model. And then we're going to want to take this model and store it in the registry. So we'll say something like registry store, and it'll probably be its name as well, and the model. And we probably want to know, like, storing things by name might get a little cluttered, like we might have collision. So I think we're probably going to want to store, like, its type. So I might say something like model here. And again, all this is subject to change. I'm just really writing like the naive approach. And I do this a lot with code. Like, I just kind of make it work. Like, I don't worry about procedural or functional or object-oriented or whatever. I don't worry about collections or anything. I really just make this as kind of a first pass. Again, in my mind, we're still kind of spiking to see what this looks like. That's also why I'm not trying to parse like controllers today, because these have a lot more like dense of a syntax. So again, just as kind of a development tangent, like I don't know. I just do the simplest thing that can possibly work in my mind, and I don't worry about naming even or whatever. Like we've seen, I already changed this from IR to model like 4 times. So I just don't worry about that stuff. I just go quick, maybe a little dirty, arguably quick and dirty. And I'm going to come back and throw some tests on this. We're still kind of just getting a feel of like how all this gets to put together, right? So like this spike, I could come in here and honestly just like do this and start over tomorrow. Like I don't know yet. So I just want to get a little farther before I kind of beat myself up over some of these like best practices, right? So, okay, let's do this. Let's get this model factory going. I'm going to create this class. Let's put this under source, and this will be called blueprint will be the namespace, right? And no, don't go under there. We'll do that. Let's see if this actually works. Don't add it. There it is, model factory. Okay, cool. And it namespaced it blueprint. Nice. Okay, so I probably want this to be just a little bit better. So let's just put this under like factories, because I imagine I'll probably have some more. So let's just get some namespacing. I do at least want to be nice about that. So we'll say factories. Yay. Okay, so that's good. And let's also get this mapped in Composer for the auto load. Correct. Whoops. Auto load. And this will be PSR4. And this is going to be blueprint. And that maps to, what is that? Source. Whoops. All right, that should work. So let's do Composer, dump, auto load. Not dash P, dash O. All right. And everything's fine here. And it doesn't exactly know. Let's import that. There we go. Cool. Okay, so we're importing that now. All good. It doesn't know what create is, so let's add that method. And this is kind of where the magic's going to happen. Okay, so this returns something that we don't know about yet. Let's also just go ahead and build this registry just to get rid of the rest. So let's say source, and I'll just leave the registry top level, to be honest. I will call it blueprint. I really hate that it changes that after I change it. I gotta tell you, I like PHP Storm, and I'm used to it. I know all the quick keys, so it would be hard for me to move. But like some of their auto generation stuff, just I swear, I feel like no dev went through and used it, or I'm just crazy. Maybe I'm not using it right. I don't know. All right, cool. Composer. Oh, sorry. Just checking the comments here. Composer shouldn't run -o in dev. Interesting. Composer actually says you shouldn't do that, huh? My bad. I'll have to read about that later. It's kind of a force of habit, I guess. All right, let's keep going here. So let's see. Let's say something like type. I don't know why I want that type just yet, but it's just for like no overlap kind of thing. Okay, cool. So that's our registry, and it's going to store something. Who knows what it is just yet. We'll come back to that. We'll write some tests for that here in a minute. Okay, so model factory create. This isn't returning anything. So I think we have everything we need now to kind of mess with this. So let's go back to our model factory and let's focus on create. And right now I'm just going to print this definition. All right, so let's run a blueprint. And our model factory is not found. I probably didn't update the registry. Factories. Did I say that right? Factories. Composer, dump, auto load. No dash O. All right. Blueprint factories. Oh, is that not capital? It's not capital. Blueprint. There we go. All right, blueprint registry, same issue. One I did lowercase and one I did capitals. Oh, the joys of development. All right, cool. What an idiot. All right, here we go. Uncut blueprint registry. That's just the reference now is wrong. I don't know if I want capital blue and capital print or like all lowercase. Part of me likes like the all lowercase, but sometimes when I crack open and I see all lowercase, it like annoys me. I don't know why. Can't explain it. I'll take some feedback on that though if you want to tweet me or throw it in the comments if you think capital B, capital P blueprint, lowercase p, all lowercase. I'm open to suggestions. To that point, I should probably get like an icon and like some typography going for like a little logo or something. So if anybody has some cool ideas on that, definitely hit me up. Okay, so the model factory is really just going to make a model. Now, I think for now, I'm going to have all the work be done here, which is arguably maybe not the right thing to do, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. So let's just keep hacking away here. Okay, so I have this definition, and really what I would like is, let's just do that real quick. Let's just make a new, well, let's just make a new class, actually. So let's do new class, and we'll say something like model. And this model, I don't know why it's doing 2 there. This model is going to have like, I just want to spike this out to like, this is going to have something like columns, and what else would I want here? Like public function, has timestamps. I'm just kind of like mapping out some methods here that I might want on the model itself. And this is going to like allow me to know certain things about it. So let's do something also maybe kind of like Laravel. We can do something like key name or something, and that'll be like the primary key. So let's just call that primary key. Why not? And like, this is obviously gonna mostly be like ID, but maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. So I think this is like a decent start, just to kind of give me some ideas. The other thing too, like with the columns, is I probably want to be a little bit smarter about housing these. So you know what I think I'm going to do is make a column as well. And I want the column, whoops, column, looks like I didn't generate that with a class. Namespace, blueprint, cool. I want columns to have some things too. So I want columns to have like attributes. So we can see kind of nullable, right? And I'm sure string might have a default. There's all sorts of things. We could have an index. There's all sorts of things inside of here. So I'm gonna want this as well. So let's do private data type. Cool. Okay, so this is going to allow me to break these down even more. Because again, I'm going to want to know information about this stuff at a pretty granular level, because it's going to make life easier later, especially with the models, to be able to generate like this stuff. So again, admittedly, I'm probably jumping the gun just a bit here, but I know I'm going to want this stuff. So it's also helping me kind of figure out the factory as well. So let's kind of set that up. And obviously model is probably going to have some kind of like private name bit as well. So I wonder if I want to generate this with columns or not. I don't know. We'll find out. Okay, so I think what would be nice is something like model is new model. Definitely got to give it a name. I think that's kind of 101 there. I thought you could like generate a constructor. Oh, wrong class. I feel like again, I hate to gripe about PHP Storm, but I feel like an earlier version of PHP Storm did better about auto-generating that. Again, maybe I've got some weird settings or whatever, but okay, cool. So we have this model constructor that's absolutely worthless. And there we go. Okay, so let's bring in the name. And now we need to figure out how to do the columns. So really, this is a for each definition as column. And are these? Yes, these also have their own. So this is going to be a name and a column. And I think here, I'm going to want to generate that. So let's try something else with this one. Let's do column. Let's do like model, add column, and we'll send it in a column. And this is really going to be something else, like a new column. And this needs to take name. And it's probably good to have the name here too, I would bet. Well, you know what? I'm passing in the whole object. I'll talk about that here in a second. Let's focus on one thing here. I'm jumping around too much. Okay, so we have name, and then we're going to need its kind of definition as well. Let's just keep perpetuating that word. Or, well, we can't. This is definition. These are really columns, to be honest. That's really what's getting passed in. So let's say it's name, and then it's definition. There we go. Definition. All right, cool. And notice this time I'm actually constructing it here, which is a bit strange. I don't know if I want to construct it that way. I'm going to make just a make, just for now. Let's try this on for size. It's just a static method. It's going to take a name, and it's going to kind of new one up, but it's going to do a little bit of parsing of the definition. So instead of doing a factory, I'm just trying out, what if the model or the column or whatever it is, what if the context is smart enough to kind of parse itself, or has a method, a static method that parses it out. So I'm just trying some different design patterns here to see which one I like. So I think what we'll do here is we'll say something like definition. This is going to need to be parsed out. So this is going to need to be set up in a way where I parse out the data type, I parse out the attributes. So that's pretty straightforward. So this, let's do that. Let's get the, I'll just call it pieces for now. And let's just say explode on a space, I guess. And again, this is probably going to need to be processed. You know what? I think PHP has a tokenizer. That could be fun. Let's see what the tokenizer does. I think there's like a string tokenizer. str tokenizer? I know they have one. Where is it? String tok. There it is. Okay, string tokenize splits string into smaller tokens with each being delimited by any character from token. That is, if you have, all right, use delimiter to splitting up the, I thought the token was optional. Okay, fair enough. And what does it do? It returns an array. Return a string token. Tokenized string. Is this like a generator where it returns just the one at a time? Use tab and new line. Token not equal to false. That's weird. I guess it just tokenizes it once. That's kind of weak sauce. All right. For now, I'll just explode it on the delimiter. And let's bring out the definition. And so now what I want to do with pieces is I kind of want to loop over these and determine, is it a data type or is it an attribute? So I think that would be nice. So let's go out to Laravel, model, data types, schema. I think it's in here. Let's see, data types. Here we go. Here's all the types. That's 4.2. Let's get a little more advanced than that. Let's do 6. 6 doesn't have that, or I typed it wrong. Data types. What did they call those? Migration? Database migration? I know they have. Here we go. Columns. Here we go. Column types. Okay, so here's all the column types. And I think the modifiers. Ooh, that's a fun name. So they call it modifiers. That's nice. Is there anything else? So a modifier is nullable a modifier? I'm sure it is. Yeah, there it is. Okay, cool. So that's kind of good to know. I was calling them attributes, but it's kind of like a modifier. So let's steal all this junk. That's a lot. It's a lot of column names. Okay. So this is probably why I would want to put it somewhere else. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this out. And let's just steal all that. I'm just going to try to turn this into something that I can use a little more readily. Let's just give it a few seconds here. This is kind of the tedious stuff today. Whoops. So let's do that, and then get rid of all that. Cool. Okay, and these are the data types. I did that again. Equals boom, and down here, boom. All right, cool. So here's all of the data types. Let's just make this a private static, and there we go. All right, so that should probably be up top, but it's kind of huge, so I don't want to do that. Let's get the modifiers next. There's also something else to notice about these, but let's come back to that here in just a second. So let's take all this and let's cut that out and hop over to the end and kill the rest of those and a comma. And this is private modifiers equals that. All right, cool. And I'm going to need to come back to this, but notice that like some of these modifiers don't take anything and then some allow something else. That's probably something I'm going to have to be either smart about or support. So like let's say something like this, like default, that. Like, I don't know what this looks like yet. So there's going to be some more parsing that probably needs to happen. That's the only reason I'm bringing this up now, is because some of these that take like, the string can take like an additional equivalent. Like this might have to have some additional bits that go in it. So again, I'm not going to worry about it too much right now. It sets another one that's just kind of interesting. So I'm not going to worry about that for V1. I'm also not going to worry about like validating this. Like we're all developers. I'm going to hope that we can kind of get that right. However, I am curious. Can I do that? Is this valid? So let's just do this real quick. Blueprint model. I did it again. Blueprint, capital P. All right, replace all. Yes. All right. Okay, so it seems like it's still parsing it. So it looks like this colon within that is okay. So I'm going to leave that alone for now. All right, let's see what else we have here. How are we doing on time? I'm trying to keep these like to 30 or 40 minutes. So definitely bit off more than I can chew within an hour today, but that's okay. I think we get the idea. There's nothing really super pretty about this. Okay, but let's at least try to parse out some of these things here. I think we're closer than it might seem. So let's just do a for each on these pieces. as a piece. And what I'm going to want to do here is basically bucket these things into either a modifier or a data type. Yeah, so let's do that. So let's say if piece is, or let's do this. Let's do in array, what do we call those? Data types. Data types. Is this needle or haystack? I always forget. That's needle. So if piece is in the data type, then you're a data type. So data type is going to be equal to piece. Otherwise, we're going to want to bucket you. Well, we don't really otherwise. Let's just say if. This will act like a little bit of validation actually as well. So if an array piece is in the modifiers, why aren't you showing up? Modifiers. Oh, I didn't make that static. There we go. Okay, so if you are in modifiers, there we are, then I'm going to add you to the modifiers array. And again, I could probably do this with a much fancier collection, but I haven't included any of those packages yet, so this is all fine. Just some old school for each iteration. Okay, so now we basically have everything we need to build this, I would think. And what's interesting is notice this data type is kind of like constantly overridden. So if someone were to do something like integer, it's just going to get the last one, which is fine because in a way it kind of serves as built-in validation, right? You can't really make something two different data types. So let's leave this alone for now. We have the modifiers, we have the data type. Let's just default some of these things just for giggles. So we'll say data type. We'll just default things to a string. So again, and then this is a nice way to do defaults. So like you could even just do something like this, right? More shorthands. So, you know, I might parse that a different way, but the point is your default data type might just be string, so you don't even have to specify that, right? So just toying around with ideas, again, it's still kind of spiking. So if I like all this stuff, maybe tomorrow we'll start backfilling some tests, and then from there maybe we'll test drive. Okay, and let's also get this modifiers equal to an array, just to be good kids. It's not required, PHP is dynamic, but I like it. And then from here, we're going to return a new column that takes the name, the data type, and the modifiers. Sweet. All right, and we're going to need to make that. Oh, PHP Storm, I wish you generated this constructor. Yay. All right, there's our constructor, which only takes attributes. So annoying. Let's call this modifiers now. Oh shit, I can't do that because I called this modifiers. Okay, we'll leave it attributes for now. I'm going to rename some of that stuff. So this takes a name, which is required, a data type, which again, I suppose could be a string, and some modifiers, which will be nothing at first. And let's initialize these fields. There we go. All right, cool. Let's see where we are. Okay, so unable to parse title. Yep, that was me. It's still a string for now. Okay, cool. And uncaught add column. No problem. Let's go back to model and let's create this public function add column. And this is going to take a column and a column. And what we're going to do is say this columns array. We're going to push that on there. And you know what? Let's be cool kids and take the columns name as its key, because you should never have overlap anyways, and that'll be column. So a couple things to do here. Let's add this as a field, and we'll default it to an empty array, and then let's generate this method, which just returns this name. Awesome. All right, let's keep going. Okay, good. We're not getting any more errors. Let's see if we can print R this sucker and just kind of see what it looks like. Where were we? Let's go back to blueprint. I think we're close enough to get to a stopping point here. So let's do this. Let's do print R on model. And it doesn't like that. Model factory create. Did I return the model? I didn't. Return model. Cool. All right, look at this. Okay, so our model is an object. It has a name of post. Excellent. It has columns, which is an array of ID. We have no attributes on it. Its name is ID, and its data type default is string. That's interesting. So this is where the tests are going to start to come in handy. So obviously, if we have an ID, that's not going to be one of the data types. It's a special data type. We're going to break that out, right? And actually, to that point, same thing here. So let's just add these little to-dos. And I think I might do this offline and start introducing tests to the projects. And then we'll do some more testing tomorrow. So let's see, handle special type of ID. And then to do, I need to break out, what do you call it, timestamps into multiple columns of created at and updated at. Cool. Okay, so I'll probably do this offline. I think it's pretty straightforward. That's also going to push the boundaries, especially the second one of this whole model factory generation, because if I'm trying to add two columns, how can I add two columns off one column definition? It's kind of interesting. So I think, again, how I was saying I was pushing the boundaries by like setting all these up. It's kind of interesting because maybe I can't do it this factory way. Maybe like I have to create the whole model at once and build it up inside of its own thing instead of kind of splitting it up in different places. So again, doing things like this is what pushes the boundaries, which is, again, going back to the beginning, why I like to just be very MVP at first. Okay, so that's good. Let's keep moving on. So title has no attributes. Its name is title and its data type is string. Perfect. Content string. Attributes for published at is nullable. It's a timestamp. Its name's published at. Great. Look, nullable got thrown in there. That's awesome. And then we have the timestamps. So we talked about that in the to-do. So a little bit of work to do here, but I think we got to where we needed to go. The last little bit, let's see how we are on questions and time. Throw across any final questions as you have them. I'll look at them here in just a second. But let's just finish out this registry just real fast. We'll just make a private an item. Let's see, a registry contains what? Items. Who cares? So we'll just hold on to that. And we'll say something like this items. Well, do we want this to just be static? Would I ever need... I'm just trying to think. Sorry. I'm just trying to think. Would I ever need this to not be... to actually create an instance of this? I'm just going to make everything static for now. I know that's a little bit ugly and a little bit global, but like... It's just a global thing. Like, it's no big deal. I'm never going to be doing anything else with this, so like, let's just say items, push something on there. So I'm going to call this type, whoops, type, and then we'll just do our own little key caching here, name, and that's going to equal the model. So let's change this up. So this is going to be name, type, and this is going to be, you know, whatever the data is or the value. So this is like a key value store. So we're going to make the key out of this name and type. And again, type could be over-engineering, admittedly. The only reason I'm thinking of it in my head is like, what if I want to get all the models out of the registry? Or what if I want to try to avoid naming collisions? Like, having this type potentially kind of helps. So let's do that. And then let's make one more method on this before I go. Again, if you're watching live, I appreciate it. Please send over any questions you might have just for the last little bit here. So here is where I'll do a print R on that. And let's get rid of this print R. And there's no get. So let's add the method. And here we'll return self items name, or well, same thing, name type. So I've done that twice now, and I'm going to make this nullable. Yes, I'm using PHP 7, and it didn't bring across type. I cannot type. Okay, cool. Now, I've done this twice, so just real quick, I'm going to refactor this into a method. And let's just call this key. And yes, that's fine. And let's make this private. And when the doc block is more than the methods, I don't need it. All right, cool. So let's just do that, just in case I ever want to change this key lookup bit. So pretty tight little class. It's probably already done, to be honest. So let's run this again, see that we didn't break anything. And notice that I moved my, what do you call it? I moved my printr up to here. It's no longer printring the model. It's printing what's coming back from the registry. So just a little poor man's real-time test here, but we see that we're getting those timestamps published at nullable, its names published at, its data types timestamp. Okay, so we are parsing model definitions now, and we can see that by having even just the beginnings of this structure here, it's going to be very easy later on to be able to generate certain things, right? It's going to be very easy, even if we think of stuff as complex as like making a form request. So like when we come down here and we say validate title and content, well, now I'm going to be able to know that I'm in the post controller based on the context. That post controller is now going to have a previous blueprint file definition. I got all these column names that I can now pull from the registry, look up that column by its name, in this case title, and see that it's a string and check it if it has attributes like nullable. And if it does, then I don't need to validate it a certain way. Or if I see that it's like a string and maybe its name is email, I can infer now based on all these things that are going to be very, very easy to pull out from these two kind of data types that we made, right? These classes of model and column. It's going to be very easy to reach down here. So again, a little bit of thinking ahead. Admittedly, normally I don't like to do that, but I think in this case, it's really just about 2 steps ahead, maybe even just 1 step ahead. So there wasn't a point in like struggling with just using that array directly. This is going to give me a lot more structure to have a bunch of methods on here, even more. I think by the end, we'll see that this class, for example, is going to have a lot more things on it, like beyond just name. It's going to have something like nullable or is timestamp or things like that, right? Things that are going to be very, very, make life easier later when we start to actually generate the final code. So with that, I'll close it down here. Let me see if there's any more questions that came across. So blueprint is 1 word in English, so I think that's a vote for the capital B. Go overboard and do something like blueprint, where it's all caps with a lowercase b. Yeah, that's weird. Okay, so it seems like most of the votes are for blueprint with the capital B. So I'll think on it tonight. Part of me still kind of likes that lowercase for some reason. I don't know. It's a little stupid techie, I suppose. But anyways, thank you all for watching live. We'll do some more again tomorrow, and just keep hacking away. We'll get this closer and closer and closer. So appreciate everybody watching live. Continue the stuff on Twitter, the conversation. Let me know what you're thinking. Ideas, more commands, more data types, whatever. I've appreciated it. So see y'all.